Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Grid Talk Talks to Grid. Today I'm here with Charlie, Nell, and Mila, and today we are talking all things Austria. We are halfway through-ish the triple header that's going on. So we just had the French Grand Prix, and now we've got the Austrian and the Styrian Grand Prix coming up. Um, Similar layout to last year, obviously, in the sense that we're having a double header in Austria because of COVID restrictions, etc., etc. We won't bore you with the logistics of all of that. But let's just do a quick recap on the previous Austrian races. So it seemed that Mercedes did quite well there last year. I think Bottas won the Styrian Grand Prix and Charles Leclerc got a podium, surprisingly, considering that Ferrari last year. And obviously, Lando got his maiden podium. And then the other race was a Mercedes 1-2, but this time with Hamilton taking the victory and Bottas taking the second place and Max Verstappen on third. What did we think about last year's Austrian races? I thought they were quite entertaining. I do feel that because it is a shorter track, it does mean obviously we get more blue flags. So obviously this year with the Hasses in particular, how that's going to play out, I do think there will be some form of blue flag drama, definitely. I think the Austrian races are heavily underrated. I think it's ones that we tend to really forget about in terms of entertainment and races. And things like that. So I want to get your opinions on last year and, how much of an impact is it going to have again this year? Because everyone was a bit skeptical about having two races at the same event back to back, especially with Silverstone as well. So let's chat. Let's talk. What do we think?
I mean, I loved last year's for obvious reasons. It was because it was our opening, wasn't it? It was our first races of last year. So I think that made them a little bit more exciting. Everyone was just excited to have Formula One back. But I mean, for the first two races, like last year, good start. I loved them. And although the second race was typical, your top three, but in a slightly different order, first race, I think, provided a lot more excitement. Obviously, Lando had his podium. So that's always a good thing. The McLarens looked really, 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 really strong. I mean, it kind of fell down the order as the year went on, but we'll forget about that because we forgive them for this year.
I mean, for me personally, I think the Red Bull Ring is my third favorite track. So I really, really enjoy the track. I really like the layout. I just feel like I personally, I'm very excited to see a double header there because the other options would have been not that much my favorite. I mean, a double header in France, I wouldn't have needed that. So I'm happy it turned out to be Austria. Even though I'm still salty about not having a German GP, I'm salty about that one. Let me just say, okay, I don't get that decision. But yeah, I'm very excited. I'm excited to see how McLaren is going to perform this year because, of course, they were very strong last year. Apart from that, I think we're going to have a nice battle between Mercedes and Red Bull again this year. Both cars looked quite strong last year. Even though I gotta say, last year I got pretty pissed at Lewis Hamilton for taking out Alexander Albon again because it wasn't the first time. And I'm just whenever that guy was on the verge of a flipping podium, Lewis Hamilton came around the corner and was like, nope, you're not going to have it. So that made me mad last year. I remember my anger. But yeah, generally, I'm very, very excited for this one. Maybe we get to see another last lap Lando. Who knows? I think his ego is very, very pushed from last year. I think he will be very motivated to get a podium here back to back. So that will be exciting to see without putting too much pressure on him, of course. And yeah, I'm up for surprises. I mean, we have some great overtaking opportunities on this track. So let's see what's happening in the midfield and especially at the back, because I feel like Haas is getting stronger and stronger. No one would have expected that car to even drive half as fast as they're doing it by now. So let's see. Maybe we're up for a surprise. Who knows?
Yeah, I agree. I think, the first one first Austrian race last year, only 11 of them finished because there were so many like overtaking issues, tyre issues, all the rest. So, you know, this is a track where anything can happen. And I really think, you know, it could, particularly with 2 races. Yeah, we might get one with the classic top 3, but the classic top 3 also, I guess, doesn't exist so much this year because we haven't seen a lot of Bottas.
Another thing I want to talk about as well is particularly the Ferraris. Now, they looked strong in Monaco. Obviously, Charles got a podium last year. How do we think that they're going to fare? Because it definitely seems that the 3rd position in the constructors is definitely tight between Ferrari and McLaren. And I think if we look at last year's races in Austria, I want to say the McLarens came out on top. I definitely think with the whole Pirelli situation and the tyres, I still think they've got a lot to answer for. And I think that tyres could also play a big part in Austria. I definitely think people think because it's a shorter track, that, you know, tyre wear isn't as important as, say, in Monaco or I'm trying to think of a really hard wearing track where you're on the throttle for a lot. Probably Baku would probably be the obvious answer there. And potentially Silverstone last year with those tyre issues as well. So it will be important, and I think it will be more strategy for Austria. I think the first race probably will be more strategy focused to get more info on the tyre. And then I definitely think the second race is where we'll probably see the true pace of the cars. I think they'll probably use the first race as kind of like a test run, if you like, to see how far they can definitely push them limits and kind of get a strategy right, which, you know, for double headers, like, it's okay. But then I also think, you know, Formula One, as much as it is about like overtaking, etc., I do think strategy does come into it, especially for double headers like this. So tyre wear is going to be very important. I think all the teams are now going to be cautious. But does this now mean that the teams are more likely to have more pit stops? And how much do we think this is going to affect the strategies and the form of the race? Because a 1 stop can now easily become a 2 can become a 3, etc., etc. How do we think that's going to fare for a track, such a short circuit like Austria?
I think ultimately tires are going to be maybe even more important than before now, because we have experiences with this track last year. We've seen the cars perform there in a doubleheader already. And I expect people to maybe even go for a 2-stop race, just because it's not a very long track and you can try to push the soft tire a bit harder maybe. So that will be interesting to see. I think qualifying is going to be crucial, of course, as always. But I also feel like, because you mentioned like Ferrari, I think we will, I mean, by now, once we are filming this, we haven't seen the French GP yet. But once we have seen the French GP, we will probably know a bit more about that situation as well, because I still think that Ferrari is strong. They have Carlos Sainz now, who was very strong in the McLaren last year, but the Ferrari is lacking straight line speed. And maybe strategy and tire work are going to make something possible for them here. But yeah, ultimately, I think that strategy is going to play a very, very huge part. And I wouldn't be surprised to see people go for 2 stops and try to work with the softer tire compounds rather than with the harder ones. But you never know. I feel like we've mentioned this quite a bit this season. Everything seems to be possible. So I think we are going to get a huge surprise probably that we aren't expecting by now.
Yeah, I agree with like the Ferrari thing. I think just because they were strong here last year, obviously things have changed as well. But so far, like, their qualifying pace is so much different. Like, they, as soon as the lights go out, they are just being like swallowed by every other driver. So do I think that Charles could get a podium again? I'm gonna say no. I don't think it's going to be possible. I don't think there'll be a Ferrari on the podium this year. I think McLaren are going to wipe their asses.
I'll take that. I'll take that. As long as it's my man.
I think this whole season is so up in the air, like Mila said. Like, the stuff going on is so unpredictable right now that it's so hard to say who's going to get what. I agree. I don't think Ferrari are going to be where, they're going to be on the podium again, because, they performed all right. Well, they mostly performed in Monaco. In Baku, they qualified well, but then didn't end up being anywhere in the race. And before that, on the actual tracks rather than street circuits, they just haven't massively been there in a way that McLaren have definitely been there. So I think if of the two, it's more likely to be McLaren who take any advantage from Red Bull and Mercedes.
However, right, I also feel like as a McLaren fan, I feel very cocky and very confident in McLaren at the moment. And I just feel like there's going to be a race that's going to strip that all from me. We'll be back to square one again, because we have had such every race, not just Lando either. I know Daniel hasn't performed as much as everyone expected him to. He's still getting to grips with the car, but as a team, they are doing well. And I feel like, and I bet you now that I've said that, it's going to be Austria.
I don't think so. I think we're in a good place for a good result, and the team, and especially Lando and Daniel, seem very, very confident. Especially Daniel now, even if Baku wasn't the best, and obviously Monaco, I'm not even going to talk about it. He seems confident, and I think throughout the many, many years I've watched him, this is probably, I don't want to say the happiest I've seen him, but especially after the setbacks and what he's been through at Red Bull, I think he hasn't lost confidence. But whereas in Renault in his first year, you could see he wasn't happy, you could see he wasn't comfortable. Then over time in Renault last year, you could see it, and this is what I'm seeing now. So I'm happy I'm seeing it 5-6 races in instead of 13 and 14 compared to last year. So I think we're in for a surprise, or a nice comforting for the McLaren fans. I want to talk about Aston Martin very, very quickly. Obviously, Sebastian has got his podium with the team. That means he now has a podium with 4 different teams, I believe. Not really sure where Racing Point were last year. I don't think they were particularly anywhere. I don't think
they were average. Perez had right. He crashed in the second one and had damage and was just going backwards. And they ended up. I mean, I think they were in the points. I can't tell you in the first one because so many.
They weren't horrible because they were driving the pink Mercedes. We cannot forget that, because last season they actually surprised us all, and I think they did that pretty early on.
Yeah, it's not the same car, is it, this year?
Yeah. No, I definitely do think Aston Martin have made some steps forward. And I think strategy, particularly for Baku, played very well into Sebastian's hand, and obviously with the red flags, etc. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did well this week. But I'm going to throw out some predictions to you guys, and then I want you to bounce off of those. I'm going to say for both races, we're going to have 3 different teams on the podium. I'm going to throw that out there. I'm going to say that at least one of them, there isn't a Mercedes on the podium.
Brave.
That is brave. Very brave.
Brave.
Mercedes are good at this track.
But so the Mercedes boys have changed chassis once again.
Yes.
So we will see how that plays. Could be good, could be bad, but I also might slyly think there could be some team beef because of the chassis, but also because of performance. Mercedes now seem to be crumbling a little bit. You know, there's a lot of blame culture going on in that team at the moment. It doesn't seem the best place. They seem to have lost their mojo. I think they weren't expecting Red Bull to be as good as they are. I think, you know, they're so focused on the new regs. Okay, fair. But also there are a couple of rumours going around the paddock, particularly on Twitter as well, that George Russell is set to replace Bottas at the end of the season. So I think maybe Bottas might have a bit of fire under his belt to be like, no. And then obviously Lewis is there because he wants to win and he wants to, you know, go for his 8th World Championship, as he should. So I think there might be some beef. I may think, you know, there could be a Spain May 2016 vibe going on into that first corner. I just feel that's the kind of tension in the team at the moment.
Yeah, you can see it if you remember. Which race was it?
Wasn't it
a couple of weeks back?
Spain this year.
It was Spain this year that Bottas just wouldn't give Hamilton the place.
Yeah, I was literally thinking that.
And I think Bottas is going to be like that all year. He's not going to give Hamilton the place. He's never going to yield for Hamilton.
I mean,
he's not going to do it anymore.
I think the whole talk about the Mercedes and Williams seats is getting very heated by now, because we also know that Esteban Ocon is staying with Alpine. So he's not an option for Mercedes. So that probably really just leaves George Russell. So if George Russell goes to Mercedes, would that even be an option for Bottas to say, okay, I'll go to Williams just to keep racing? I don't think so. So
I
it's
think
really like,
if I was really Bottas,
I would do it.
I'd leave.
I mean, it's
imagine
really
being, imagine being in a world championship dominating team, right?
Yeah, and then going
where
to
you could have won championships and won more races. And then they do a driver swap. If I was Bottas, I'd be too embarrassed, ashamed.
I don't know where else he can go as well. It feels like a lot of seats for next year are already filled.
And I mean,
a lot of
the biggest question right now for me is then, so if Bottas decides, like, if we really get this George Russell announcement and Bottas decides to step down, which I feel like would be the logical move to make, because I just can't see him wasting his time in a Williams. He has been in a too good of a team to go back to Williams. That leaves, for me personally, only 2 people to take that Williams seat, and one is Jake Aitken and the other one is Dan Ticktum. So the exciting thing to see is if that is going to play out the way we expect it to be, because there are a bunch of contracts running out at the end of the year, but I cannot expect like Valtteri Bottas to go to any other team. The only option he really has for me would be Williams. And
McLaren
I don't see him.
He could do
but like exactly, but like in Formula One,
I
think he only does have that Williams seat, you know. And I mean, I agree. I don't think I want to see Bottas in Extreme E, but hey, I mean, if that's for
he
him,
does rally,
you go, man.
Like, he does already do rally, so
sure,
it's not unlikely that he'll get.
And that. I mean, he is a great driver. Okay, I think we need to mention it at one point. Like, Valtteri Bottas is a great driver. It just sucks to be next to Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, I think he should do the Tour de France.
Oh, the Tour de France. Yeah, I mean, his girlfriend is very keen on like biking, so maybe they can train together. That's a great option.
Maybe Lewis will do him a favour and put him in his Extreme E team.
Oh, that is so true. Oh my God.
I'm sorry I've made you look for the last couple of years. Yeah.
He's in my...
I don't think Lewis has anywhere near enough faith in Bottas to put him in that seat.
Yeah, but like honestly, I think for me personally, if they really stick with that rumored George Russell announcement, the big question for me is going to be the Williams seat, because we know Jake Aitken has been working for them quite a bit, but we also know that it's probably Dan Ticktum's last chance at a Formula One seat, because I mean, we're not getting younger, right? So I'd
like to throw in a curveball.
Oh, wow. Give it to us, please.
Mr. Sergei Sorokin.
Wow. Okay, that is indeed a curveball. I didn't expect that name to drop. Okay.
No.
But I can't really see that either. I think
Sergei. He's so cute.
Right.
He's so cute.
He's nice, but we need young people in Formula One.
They need people who can properly develop the team as well. Like,
yeah, give us
Williams
rookies,
need
please.
to go forward. Sorokin
Yeah.
is part of that.
I'd
know.
love to see Dan in there, to be honest, rather than Jack. Like, I think,
Yeah,
you know, Jack's great, but I think they're gonna need someone that's a bit more fighty, a bit more oomphy to challenge Nicholas a bit more, because he won't have George. I think Nicholas will need someone like Dan to really just go, come on, mate, fucking hurry up. Do you know what I mean?
They need someone who's constantly fighting at the front, you know, in F2, which I know Jack Aitken was given the chance at the very last second, but he has not done anything particularly exciting so far.
I mean, he's also not in one of the greatest cars. We just need to mention that last year when Dan was still with Dams, it wasn't working out either. So he's very lucky to be with Carlin right now, because that actually gives him a car that works. But I think, I mean, I agree. I know that Dan Ticktum is like a person that people are very torn about. You know, some people paint him out to be the bad guy, but he has improved so much. And I think his driving style could really work for Williams, because like Caitlin already said, they need someone who has that bit of more fire, I guess, to really get that car somewhere. And George Russell has that. Because he is driving that car into Q2, and he's really giving it all he got. And I think they need someone who can fill that seat with the same energy. And I think for me personally, that can only be Dan Ticktum. But I'm up for surprises, you know, like I don't have any clue on what's going to happen. And I'm actually going to hope for another George Russell points maybe this time. Who knows?
My thing is that I can't imagine George and Lewis in the same.
No, I was about to say the same.
But it would be like, so in my head, I was thinking, okay, they're going to sit George in that Williams for another year until Lewis decides to retire. Ocon's going to go take Bottas' seat. Pierre's going to go to Alpine. I still don't know how to say
Alpine.
We're like 6 races in, I'm still not convinced. Pierre, for me, like yes, I'm a McLaren fan. I'm also a really big Pierre fan, and I cannot. Yes, he's doing really well in that Alpha, but I cannot sit there and watch him as part of Red Bull for another season. Like, imagine that Mercedes are just like, yo, join us.
I think
I was going to say
now. Wait,
Pierre and George. Oh,
yes.
could you imagine?
And then Lewis leaves, and that's Pierre and George.
I think ultimately, with all of it, you can't listen too much to all these rumors anyway, because every single article and post I've seen about George Russell moving says Toto has spoken to his management, and Toto is his management. So that's when you prove, like, it doesn't mean anything.
He's just looked in the mirror and just,
you know, it's Toto talking to himself. Like, you can't believe a single word that comes out of these people sometimes. We saw it a couple of weeks ago with the McLaren announcement, and it ended up being the golf thing. And on Twitter, people were coming out with the most random things and saying they knew it from people within F1. And it, you know,
I mean, those are the same people who said Mattia Binotto is going to leave, and I don't expect that dude to leave ever. Like, I mean, my personal opinion, I would love to see him leave, because ever since he came, it's been going downhill. But hey, I don't think it's going to happen. So yeah, I totally agree. Probably rumors are just that, rumors. But I think, I mean, I've seen these tweets all over the place right now where people like expect the madness on F1 Twitter if they actually do announce Bottas for next season. Everyone is going to cry. Like,
I'll block Mercedes and I'll report them.
So I actually did on my Twitter. I did a poll of like when that like Italian Sky News Sports News or whatever
Sky
it was,
Italia,
came out and said like George is going to get announced. I did like a Twitter poll because I was genuinely interested in like what people thought was going to happen. I put, since rumours are circling again, who would you personally like to see get a seat in the Merc for 2022? 15% said Pierre Gasly, 76% said George.
I was part that said 76. I voted.
5% said Valtteri Bottas, and then 4% said other, and loads of people was like, it's going to be Ocon. Like, they were like, Charlie, this isn't even.
That's not gonna happen.
But
well, whilst we're quickly on the topic of Ocon, since he has got re-signed, I can't remember what Fernando's contract is or how long he's tied into it for. A few years.
2 years.
Two. Okay. Then one of the questions that was raised on Twitter was Alpine have all of their young academy drivers. They've just re-signed Esteban Ocon. Fine, great. I think that's a very good move. But I think for their second seat, I really do think they need a younger driver. I just think Fernando just isn't cutting it. Yes, he had a good race at Baku. I think he got lucky. Yes, he can still drive, obviously, but I don't think he's going to develop that team as much as he could do.
The thing for me is I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this. I don't rate Ocon as a driver. Like, if I could have got rid of anybody in that team, it probably would have been him over Alonso, and my hate for Alonso grows quite deep inside here. So
I just think Ocon's a great second driver, and I think he's a good development driver, and I think he's reliable. I think that's probably why they've kept him so. And obviously he's French. They have to keep that French connections. Would I like to see Pierre and Esteban? Yes, but I'd rather see Pierre in the Mercedes than in the Alpine. I'd like to see Oscar in potentially the Alpine or Christian Lundgaard, I think is a very good shout.
The problem for them is that they don't have a second team, all the other if you're like with George could sit in the Williams for essentially as long as they wanted him to and wait. Renault really don't have that at all. Like, they can't put them anywhere else to wait.
Yeah.
With Ferrari, they have, Haas, and they have Alfa Romeo. They have places for these people to kind of build their F1 knowledge. But Renault, Alpine, you just have to go in.
I think we're missing one very important person here, actually, to be honest. Guan Yu Zhou, who has been super reliable in Formula 2. And I actually expected him to get a seat. Like, I just...
It must be so disheartening for the F2 drivers.
I mean, when they announced Fernando Alonso, part of me was like, oh my God, a legend is coming back. But another part of me was like, wow, this Renault Driver Academy is so strong. And they're not giving a single one of them the chance to actually get a seat. And part of me just still doesn't understand why that is. And they will have another year of Alonso. So even if Guan Yu Zhou ends up having a great season, which I hope for, which it looks like because he's a great driver, he still won't be able to get a seat next year because now both of the Alpine seats are already taken. And that puts me onto the topic of how long are some of these guys supposed to wait until they are able to get that.
I was going to say, this is a whole different podcast episode, because the whole I just think the whole feeder series don't work for Formula One. You have so many great drivers. Like the Formula 2 season this year, the drivers are insane. It's one of the strongest lineups in years, and last year was brilliant. Are we just failing them? I will never get over the fact that Callum Ilott did not get a seat.
How is that even possible?
That scars me to this very day, and I'm still not convinced that yes, he's reserve driver for here and there, and he's doing this with Alfa, and he's doing this with Ferrari. Is he going to get that seat? I'm not convinced.
I just feel like and it annoys me a lot that Kimi does have that ability to he decides, and I find that really, and there has to be a point where you say, Kimi, Fernando, you need to go. You need to give someone else the chance, because otherwise, what's the point of having feeder series? There needs to be some kind of rule about making sure that there's kind of a bit more. I don't know how you do it, but a bit more turnover in terms of you can't sit there at 40 plus years old. And
I just can't expect, I can't imagine Formula One without Kimi Räikkönen. I just can't. He was there ever since I started watching it.
He'll always
imagine him being gone.
Though he won't go away, I don't think.
I
personally think
I agree, though.
what will
I agree.
happen is in the likes of Kimi and Fernando, I think obviously they'll stay full for this year, and I think as much as it's sort of annoying, obviously Fernando's got a contract till next year. I think that they will test the new regs, and if Alpha and if Alpine aren't where they should be or where they want to be, I think they'll go. And I definitely think Fernando will be like, nah, bun it, I'm off, mate.
Honestly, I'm really hoping for Alpha at the end of this year to get rid of both Gio and Kimi and bring in and do a Haas, bring in 2 rookies and just go with what, you know, like, or like even Callum, bring Callum in. I mean, he'd still be a rookie. So like bring Callum in and then another driver from F2 this year, because like they're not getting anywhere. Like they've been in the same position now for 2 seasons and nothing's happening.
I reckon there could be a driver swap. I reckon then if Antonio and Kimi do go, I reckon Callum will go into Alpha, as will Mick. And I think if Carlos keeps performing, then he will stay in Ferrari. And then I think, you know, when the time is ready, so when Mick has then been in that Alpha, he'll then go to Ferrari. So then I think it will be Mick and Callum in the Alpha, and then I think Haas will have 2 new rookies, and then if George does go to Mercedes, then I think there'll be another rookie in the Williams, and then potentially if Fernando leaves, then hopefully one of the Renault Academy drivers can finally get their time to shine alongside Esteban Ocon, who I think will be a great sort of mentor for them, despite, you know, obviously not fighting for positions all the time, but in terms of knowledge of the car, the team, etc., I think he'll be a good someone to learn off. But that's a conversation for another time. We'll quickly do predictions for Austria, since we haven't done that and we're, you know, conscious of time. So I'm going to go with my predictions that it's going to be 3 different teams on the podiums at both races. I'm going to be bold. I'm going to say my man on the podium. Either or, I have faith. And yeah, I reckon lots of spinning and a big old tussle, I reckon. What do we think?
I'm going to go similar to last year. I agree that there's going to be 3 different teams, and I think that'll be for both races. But I think one will be more surprising than the other. I think McLaren, I'm going to go that one, like there will be a McLaren podium in one of the 2 races. I hope so, because it was the Austria race that I made a bet to say that if McLaren got a podium last year, that I would get my tattoo. And then it happened.
And all it took was an hour and a half.
It literally happened on the first race. So I mean, like that'd be a nice way to remember it.
Yeah, maybe if they get Charlie, maybe if they get a double podium this year, maybe you should get the logo on the other leg, so you now have 2.
No, so I want no. So I've tweeted out saying if they double their amount of podiums from last year, then I will get like a sneaky Kiwi on the back of like the other ankle.
Now, predictions now.
See, I think Mercedes and Red Bull are both going to be pretty strong. I have a feeling we may have one which has just those 2 teams, but I think it will be Perez and Verstappen and only one of the Mercedes. Mm-hmm. And I really hope that Lando Norris does well, just because
it's Lando.
But also McLaren have been really on it this year, and I think it would be deserved if they got another podium.
Yeah.
Sheila?
I mean, I think I will probably only predict one podium, because I expect us to get back to this topic next week, one way or the other. So I think, yeah, I see that. I mean, it's Red Bull Ring, right? So I want to see a Red Bull on the podium, no matter what. I want a Max Verstappen win, because I'm just that much of a Red Bull fan. I kind of agree with the only one Mercedes on the podium thing. And I do think that McLaren could get a back-to-back podium here as well. So I would go with Max Verstappen in front of probably Lewis Hamilton, because Bottas just doesn't seem as strong so far. And then hopefully Lando Norris. But everything that goes on behind that is pretty open to me. I think there will be a battle between Ferraris, AlphaTauris, and the other McLaren maybe, and the other Mercedes. So that's pretty open, I would say. And like I said in the beginning, I'm very excited to see what's going on in the back of the grid as well, because we have seen some more or less strong pace from the Haas drivers. So maybe we get to see another Haas overtaking a Williams. Who knows? You never know.
I have a thing for you all to predict.
Oh God.
So obviously with blue flags, at what position do you think the leader will overtake? Like what position will the last over? I don't know how to word this.
What lap do you think?
No, so like at what position will?
What's the highest position they will overtake?
Lapping them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
The Haas is so bad that they'll probably all do it.
I'm going to say 12.
Yeah.
12. I'm
going to say 12.
Yeah.
12. You know what? Then I'll go with 11. I was actually thinking about going with the P10 because it is that short of a track.
It is.
And those fast cars are super fast. And I mean, we already almost saw Mick Schumacher lapping his own teammate. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's happening, you know? So you know what? I'll say P10.
I think P10. I wouldn't be surprised because the midfield is so strong this year. Like we have a lot of teams in the midfield and not many at the back really at the moment, you know, apart from Haas and well, Williams to a point, but particularly Haas are the only ones who are that far behind everybody else, I'd say. You know, I'm not predicting Williams on the podium, of course, but with races like this, it can be so mental that
you never know.
You never know. Sometimes they get up to P5.
The rain gods may come down. That is our preview of the double header in Austria. We hope you enjoyed. A little bit of a tangent going on there between seats, but let us know if you want to see our thoughts on you know, the junior drivers and the feeder series and what we think. Let us know and comment down below who you would like to see in the seats as well, and what you think the finishing order will be for the race this week. And as always, if you did like the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and make sure you're following all of our social media. The links are in the description as always. And also make sure you press that notification bell, because we are on it with uploading at the moment. There's a range of content from all of us here at Grid Talk. But yes, we hope you have a wonderful day whenever and wherever you're watching this. And we will be back with another video soon, but keep an eye on all socials as we are blog posting, tweeting, Instagramming, TikToking. We're all about everywhere. You can't get rid of us, so make sure you follow us on all of those. But we shall see you all next week, and enjoy the race. Bye everyone.